Sherlock Holmes. A Game of Shadows from 2011 follows Sherlock Holmes, a highly intelligent and perceptive detective, and Dr. John Watson, his loyal companion, as they navigate a complex web of conspiracy, espionage, and moral ambiguity orchestrated by the cunning and enigmatic antagonist Professor James Moriarty. The narrative explores themes of intelligence, ethical reasoning, relational awareness, moral courage, and the interplay between analytical skill and human empathy in navigating high-stakes situations. Holmes embodies cognitive mastery, deductive reasoning, and strategic foresight, while Watson represents loyalty, relational intelligence, and practical moral judgment, creating a dynamic interplay that highlights the convergence of intellect, ethics, and relational awareness in achieving effective action and justice. The plot escalates when Moriarty initiates a series of coordinated criminal and geopolitical schemes designed to destabilize Europe and profit from chaos, forcing Holmes and Watson to confront threats that are both intellectually and ethically complex. The narrative emphasizes the integration of cognitive skill, ethical reflection, and relational coordination, illustrating that successful navigation of morally ambiguous and strategically challenging scenarios requires multidimensional competence. Holmes' ability to anticipate, analyze, and manipulate information contrasts with Moriarty's similar but ethically unscrupulous capacities, emphasizing the ethical dimension of intelligence and strategic foresight in shaping outcomes. Relational dynamics drive both narrative tension and character development. Holmes and Watson must negotiate trust, loyalty, and complementary skill application while facing moral dilemmas and physical danger. Their partnership demonstrates the necessity of relational intelligence, communication, and mutual understanding in high-stakes environments. The interactions between Holmes, Watson, and supporting characters, including Irene Adler and various law enforcement and intelligence figures, highlight the importance of collaboration, ethical negotiation, and relational awareness in achieving strategic objectives, reinforcing that intellect alone is insufficient without ethical guidance and relational coordination. The antagonist, Moriarty, represents the ethical hazards of unrestrained intellect and ambition. His actions illustrate how brilliance divorced from moral responsibility can destabilize societies, manipulate individuals, and generate widespread harm. The narrative explores the consequences of unethical strategy, highlighting the necessity of integrating ethical reflection with cognitive skill and relational intelligence in high-stakes problem-solving. Moriarty's schemes provide both physical and intellectual challenges, emphasizing that heroism involves confronting threats that are simultaneously strategic, ethical, and relational in nature. Action sequences are intricately designed, combining physical confrontation, tactical improvisation, and intellectual dueling. Holmes' skill in observation, deduction, and preemptive strategy complements Watson's practical combat abilities and ethical judgment, illustrating the multidimensional nature of effective action. These sequences underscore that successful navigation of complex challenges requires harmonizing cognitive skill, ethical reasoning, and relational intelligence, demonstrating that operational mastery is inseparable from moral and interpersonal competence. Psychological and ethical dimensions are explored through the characters' responses to deception, moral uncertainty, and high-stakes risk. Holmes' analytical mind balances deductive precision with moments of moral discernment, while Watson's loyalty and ethical consistency provide grounding and relational stability. The narrative examines the interplay between intellect, emotion, and ethical judgment, illustrating that effective decision-making in morally ambiguous environments depends on the integration of cognitive clarity, emotional insight, and ethical reasoning. Characters must reconcile personal risk, societal responsibility, and relational obligations, reflecting the multidimensional complexity of moral and operational choice. Social and ethical themes are further developed through the depiction of manipulation, social hierarchy, and systemic vulnerability. The narrative emphasizes that intelligence and power can be wielded for both ethical and unethical purposes, and that moral courage requires not only understanding the mechanics of strategy, but also evaluating the ethical consequences of action. Holmes' interventions demonstrate that responsible application of skill, foresight, and relational awareness can mitigate harm, uphold justice, and navigate complex social structures. The climax integrates cognitive, ethical, and relational threads as Holmes and Watson confront Moriarty in a high-stakes confrontation. The resolution requires strategic foresight, moral clarity, and effective collaboration, illustrating that multidimensional heroism depends on harmonizing intellect, ethical responsibility, and relational coordination. The narrative reinforces that ethical, cognitive, and interpersonal faculties must converge to achieve both operational and moral success in complex, high-stakes scenarios. Cinematography, visual effects, and sound design enhance immersion, narrative clarity, and thematic resonance. Action choreography, environmental interaction, and period-specific set design amplify the tension, scale, and relational stakes of the conflict. Musical scoring and auditory cues reinforce suspense, psychological tension, and moral urgency, ensuring that technical execution complements narrative, ethical, and cognitive themes. The integration of spectacle with ethical, relational, and intellectual dimensions highlights the multidimensional complexity of heroism, strategic skill, and moral agency. Ultimately, Sherlock Holmes, A Game of Shadows presents a narrative in which cognitive mastery, ethical reasoning, relational intelligence, and adaptive strategy converge within a morally and operationally complex environment. The film emphasizes that effective heroism, operational success, and responsible agency arise from integrating intellect, moral clarity, emotional insight, and relational coordination. By blending action, psychological exploration, ethical inquiry, and relational complexity, Sherlock Holmes, A Game of Shadows reinforces the appeal of protagonists who harmonize skill, morality, and relational awareness to navigate high-stakes, multifaceted, and morally ambiguous scenarios, illustrating that true heroism requires the alignment of personal growth, ethical responsibility, and strategic competence in chaotic and ethically complex contexts.